Okay, Mikey, the floor is yours. Take it away.
All right. Thanks, Tommy. And welcome everyone to this really special session that I get to do with Arash Assoughi. Arash, how are you?
Great, Mikey. How are you?
I am doing great. For those of you that don't know, Araj is Bob and Sandy's personally trained coach. He's been with the Proctor Gallagher Institute for over 10 years now, and he has worked with thousands of our clients all around the world to get better results in their lives. And so this is a really special treat. It's something that we do every single seminar, and we cover all sorts of different topics, but specifically things that you can implement into your life right now to get the results that you really want to get. So if you want more and better in your life, then you are in the right place. You're absolutely going to love this session, and I'm really excited to get started. Araj, are you ready to go?
I'm ready, Mike.
All right. First, I'd love to know, in this specific set of circumstances that we're all in, has it changed the way that you approach your daily study habits and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to make sure you're set yourself up to win?
Yeah, no, for sure it has. I think, all of us didn't know what to expect as this was all unfolding. And I remember I was on a call with Bob probably about 5-6 weeks ago, and I said, I really think it's super important that if for whoever wants to double and triple their results, they have to double and triple their investment in themselves and what they're studying and how their daily habits are. I'm super, super committed to daily rituals because I really think those are what creates A+ performers, elite performance, mastery. These are the things that I really focused on. So for me, I doubled everything. I wake up at 5 every day, non-negotiable for me. And there's times of course, I don't want to wake up sometimes, but at 5. But I do it in 5 to 7. I created a routine, and I really, really internalized it and really specialized it 6 weeks ago. I changed my routine around where first thing I do is I work out because it just gets me in the right flow and really gets me with the right energy. The next thing I do is I do a 20-minute meditation. And I've done meditation off and on, but in these last 6 weeks, I have done it and really gone deep with it, and that's made a deep impact for me. Number 3, I do gratitude. I do my auto-suggestion. And auto-suggestions, for the people who don't know, is a suggestion from yourself to yourself. And what I have a ritual of is I read my goal card. Like, my goal card is right here, and I will read it for 5 minutes a day with a lot of emotion, because I want to transfer it to the deepest part and forge it with my subconscious mind. And then I am doing even more gratitude. I do a second gratitude session. I mix up the gratitudes because I want to double my gratitude. I want to double everything I'm doing. So I used to study an hour a day, and now it's 2 hours. And it's really made a really great impact for me personally over the last 6 weeks. I've noticed such a difference in my process and how it has affected my performance. One of the things that I really believe is our performance always matches our mindset. So that's why it is so essential that my mind is really strong, like really mentally tough, really focus on the present moment. And that's what I've incorporated, between now and really the last 6 weeks.
I love that, Araj. Thank you for sharing. You're someone that people love to be around because you have this intensity in everything that you do that I feel like is really contagious. Like, you really walk the walk. You don't just talk the talk. You're doing all of these exercises. You're working on yourself every single day. And I do feel like that's contagious because you're so enthusiastic about it. But that's a vast difference maybe from where you were 10 or 11 years ago when you started on this journey. And so I'd love for you to talk about where you started and then how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. I mean, you're so right about it. Like, I look back now, even from a year ago, and it's so different, but going back, 10, 11 years ago, I'll never forget one of my first conversations with Bob when I was about to get mentored by him. Bob and I had a mutual acquaintance. And Bob was asking me about my results. And I said, I've been studying this for 3 years. I've read X amount of books and I went to seminars. And he says, you don't know this, you know about it. All I have to do is look at your results. And that was like a punch in the gut, but it was such a good punch in the gut for me. I didn't take it personal. I knew he was right, And from that moment on, I said, I'm going to do what this man tells me to do. And to the best of my ability, I have done that. We were actually talking about that a few weeks ago on the phone. And he said, you've always done what I tell you to do. And I said, I do it to the best of my ability, but it has not always been easy. Because some of the things he has me do, everything is like, he doesn't give you time to even let your paradigm kick in. Like, you got to go do it. You know, everything is speed. You know, so for me, I mean, everything has changed. I used to be undisciplined. I would say lazy. I would constantly let the outside control me. I wasn't in a good financial position. I wasn't healthy. You know, since then, everything has transformed completely. You know, I earn a 7-figure income. I'm healthy. I'm in the best shape I've been in. And my discipline is through the roof. And I'm just so in love with what I do. Like, I love attacking my day. Like, that is something, like, I wake up like really inspired of doing my morning routine because I know it's going to get me going in the right direction. So I'm one of those people who really loves the process, you know, of really creating what I consider success and the process of really growing.
I love that. And you clearly have an exceptional attitude, and you even did back then, because when you said it was a punch in the gut, but it was a good punch in the gut, it was what I needed. Whereas a lot of people might have been like, you know, kind of like shoulders down whenever they heard that, right? Like, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe this isn't for me. And instead you took it and used it as fuel and motivation. And so why don't we get into attitude a little bit and why a positive mental attitude is so important?
I mean, attitude is everything. You know, if you have a good attitude, you're going to get good results. Great attitude, great results. One of the things that I have really understood with attitude, and I've taken it very deeply because Bob has impressed it on me. I would have never thought about attitude until I was picking Bob's brain about successful people. I said, what is some of the key characteristics they have? And number one was attitude. And I'll never forget, and I say this over and over again, I know a lot of people here who've heard me speak, I've heard this, but you got to hear it again, because Bob told me, he said, anyone can have a great attitude when things are going great. The true professional in life have a better attitude when things are challenging. And I think it is so essential to understand that we have an attitude towards everything. Like right now, I have an attitude with this conversation with you. I had an attitude coming in. Like, I have an attitude towards money. I have an attitude towards health. I have an attitude towards growing. I have an attitude towards my clients. I have an attitude towards my friendships, you know, I have an attitude towards my kids, my wife, you know, everything is an attitude. So, and if we understand a couple factors, there's only two things we control. We control what we think about, and we control our attitude. Like, just think about it. We have to control two things. And those are the ones that are easy to do, like Jim Rohn says, and it's easy not to do.
You know, you'll relate to this because you have young kids, but I'm sure you've seen your young kids where they will be really mad or upset about something, and within a split second, happy again and ready to do the next thing. Whereas adults, when we get upset about something, or we're sulking, or we have a bad attitude, we tend to really hang on to that bad attitude, and we don't want to let it go for some reason. We have a little bit longer time to snap back to the good side. So what are some tips where if you catch yourself with a bad attitude, you can really snap back into a good attitude?
You know, you got to put priority on it, though. You know, I think the first thing is you've got to understand how important attitude is. You know, if you go and listen to Bob talk about attitude, Sandy talk about attitude, listen to me talk about it, and you go away and you forget about it, you know, like, I like grading my attitude. Like, at the end of the day, I like saying, well, where was my attitude today? You know where your attitude was based on how you feel. And one of the things with attitude, again, is, you know, somebody could be the most optimistic person in the world, but they can operate from scarcity. And if they're operating from scarcity, they're creating a negative mental attitude. So the first thing you could do to shift it is what I like to call reframing, okay? So let's say I get down about something, or something outside happens, you know, I'm gonna either let it control me for the next hour, for the next day, for the next week, or I'm gonna reframe it and use it for my benefit. You know, say, okay, that's interesting. Well, why did that happen? Like, just ask yourself questions. Why did that happen? I wonder what I've been thinking the last few days to even allow that in my space, you know? And then, because you can shift it by just saying the word cancel and reaffirming the opposite. And some people will be sitting there maybe thinking, well, you don't know what's happened to me. Well, I know what's happened to you, but I know it's how we respond to it that's going to get us through it. And a year from now, it's not going to matter.
Yeah. You know what is so crystal clear in listening to you talk about this is that you are very consciously aware of what's happening and you're actively asking yourself questions. Whereas a lot of people, I would say the mass majority of people, are really drifting. They not only are they not aware, but they're not asking themselves questions to become aware of exactly what's going on in their life. And so how do you gain the, I don't know, the awareness to even do that?
I honestly, you know, when you were speaking the question, just starting it, the first thing that came to me was study. It is studying myself, using the material that I've been studying for so many years and implementing it in my life. Like I always tell my clients, you got to live this. This isn't a 9 to 5. You do it between 9 to 5 towards getting to a goal. This is something that you've got to activate in all areas of your life, because what I'm doing right now is impacting other areas of my life as well. And, you know, you go back into discipline. You know, discipline is so important, because what we're talking about here is just disciplining our thinking, not letting the outside control us. And most people are not they are not disciplining their mind. Their mind is disciplining them by the outside reality. So they're letting the outside control the inside. And if you look at what's going on in our world, I mean, all of us had an emotional impact, okay, with the pandemic, but we cannot let the outside control the inside. And it is so hard to do because there's so much negativity being broadcasted, you know? So this is where we've got to really get into really getting our thinking razor sharp.
Yep. That's such a good point. What I was hoping to talk about next is self-image. How you've built your self-image over the last several years, the best way to build your self-image, and why that is so important.
You know, it's something that it really means a lot to me, okay? Because I know how much my self-image has changed. And not just from 10 years ago, but, you know, a few months ago, a few years ago, you know, and our self-image is our foundation. I really believe it's our foundation to personal success, okay? And our self-image, if we really understand it, if we're talking negative to ourselves or we allow somebody else to talk negative to us, it's chipping away at our image. And we can never outperform our self-image. Let's look at income for a second, okay? Nobody can earn more than they feel like they deserve. That's just the way it is. Like, that's what I'm always telling myself. Like, if I want to create a certain goal, whether it be a health goal, you know, a vacation goal, a financial goal, I know I have to constantly continue improving my deservingness and my self-image to be able to match that frequency to really achieve it. And self-image, there's 2 ways you can do it. Actually, 3 ways. I think your appearance is really going to help your self-image, okay? I think studying self-image and really understand it, and I think personally the best book on self-image is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And the third thing is by acting as that person. Like, you're not going to get, like, you could study it and not act it. And if you don't act it and be that person, step out of it, step out of the old self-image and into the new one, step out of the old attitude and into the new one, step out of the new position and into the new one before it even shows up, that's how you're going to alter your self-image. And then you're going to get in an awesome habit of really constantly increasing your image.
I love that. You know, you brought up something that I want to go a little bit deeper on, and that is that your appearance affects your self-image. And I know that a lot of people, there's a big wave going around about self-love and loving yourself regardless. And so how do you work on your image? Yes, love yourself for who you are and what you look like, but how does your image really play into your self-image?
Well, it's everything. Like, think about it when you are going to a nice dinner and you dress nice. Do you feel better?
Yeah.
You know, so that's going to increase your image. You know, I asked Bob a question years ago and it just came to mind. I said, if you were coaching somebody on self-image, what would be the one thing you would tell them to do right away? And he said, upgrade their appearance, you know, their wardrobe, you know. So right away, you want to do things that make you feel good, you know. And I know, just like when I was first starting out and when I was starting to do better, one of the things that I used to do, and this really impacted my image, is I would celebrate myself. So let's say I achieved something, I would buy myself something, okay? and to celebrate that win. And because if we start celebrating our wins, most of the time we minimize the great things and maximize the mistake we made, or maximize something we said, or maximize something that is very small percentage that we don't understand the impact we're making in the world with all the good we're putting out, So it's really becoming aware of how important it is. I always tell clients all the time, if you understand how important image is, then it makes no sense to me for you to beat yourself up.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Something that you talk about a lot. So for those of you that don't know, Arash and I have been working together for 10 years. Him and his wife, Veronica, are two of my very best friends. And so I have heard you talk extensively about a personal standard. I know you set a personal standard for yourself. You encourage everyone on your team and your clients to do the same. So can you talk about what a personal standard is and why you think it's so important?
Yeah, so I have discovered over the last 10 years, and I've been talking about personal standard for a couple of years now, because I've really discovered how important it is to my ascension and evolution for myself. And I really believe our personal standard is our DNA to greatness. And everybody has a standard, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. What I want people to understand and create for themselves is a standard on a consciousness level. Be consciously aware of what your standard is, because your standard impacts your expectation and impacts your attitude. If you have no standard, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Well, I think it does matter, because I want everything to line up with my standard. And it is it's an antidote for me not to settle, and if it's not in harmony with my standard, I don't do it, or I don't study it, or I don't want to be around that environment. Okay. So, and when we have that standard, we're going to start attracting to ourselves everything that is in that standard. And as you start practicing this, your standard is going to go higher and higher. Well, you're going to notice so many changes in your life because of that standard. I think once you raise your personal standard, it is an absolute game changer. It is going to increase what we were just talking about, your self-image, your self-esteem, and self-confidence. And if you look at any goal, you can't achieve that goal without the right amount of confidence. It's just not going to happen. And I didn't always have the confidence I have today. I had to work on it, and I had to continue raising my standard.
I love that. So good. I want to really dig into the science of getting rich now. Wallace Wattles talks about the right to be rich and complete richness. And so I'd like your take on what exactly he means by those two things.
Well, first of all, I think we all have the right to be rich. Bob wrote his whole book, his first book, You Were Born Rich, on that topic, that we came into the world rich. And I think we all have the right to be rich, but it's our choices. Our choices are going to make us go into the richness in our health, in wealth, in our friendships, in our environment, in the new positions and the people we partner with, so I believe truly, for me, what Wattles is talking about is really tapping into the richness that the world will give to us, because the world is impersonal. Your subconscious mind is impersonal. It just goes by the choices you make and how you condition yourself. So in terms of it, I think it's just, once again, just stepping in to who you want to be. I go back to the question Bob asks me all of the time, and he says, what is it that you really want? It sounds like such an easy question, but it's really not, because for me, I don't want to just say something I don't want. I want to really create what I want. And that goes into the richness in our being. We can have anything we want, but in order to have it, we got to put in the work to become it.
Yeah. I know Bob is often talking about chapters 4, 14, and 7 in Science of Getting Rich. And so I'd love for you to just touch on some of your biggest takeaways from those chapters specifically.
I mean, for me personally, he's had me study it for several years for 90 days at a time. His advice to me, it's the 3 principles of prosperity. It's the first principle of the Science of Getting Rich. It is the impression of increase, which is leaving everyone better off than you found them. And it's gratitude. Well, the first principle of the Science of Getting Rich, I always have on my desk. I have it right here. And I have it highlighted right here, because in it, he talks about the importance of not letting your present results control your thinking, which is everybody's challenge, because we've been all conditioned. Well, once I see it, I'll believe it. And it is not easy to do, but I think it is essential if you want to create true quantum leaps in your life. And then impression of increase is leaving every person better off than you found them. Like that chapter is such an important chapter. You know, Bob told me you'll never ever have to worry about money again if you just focus on leaving everybody better off than you found them. And I think there is no better example of anyone that does it better than Bob. He is so generous with his time and always is focused on the person he's working with. And obviously the third one, gratitude, which I know a lot of you are practicing, a deliberate practice of gratitude, because gratitude itself is the vibration of abundance. You can't be in a bad mood and be grateful at the same time. It doesn't happen.
I love that. And I feel like that's going to tie into my next question. I want to talk about environment, especially right now. A lot of us are at home. We're at home around the same people every single day, but not everyone is fortunate enough to be in a positive environment around positive people. And so how can you overcome your environment or create an environment that is positive and productive?
Well, as you start changing, your environment is going to change. You know, and you've got to make that commitment that you're going to be around it. I was reading the book Grit. It's a phenomenal book if anyone read it, but they talked so much about how environment is a direct correlation to success. And, you know, as you constantly are studying yourself, you're going to be or want to be around more like-minded people. But your environment is so important. Like I've got a story for you that I think will impact people. It impacted me. You know, a couple weeks ago, Bob was telling me, and this was my environment, masterminding with Bob, and he gave me a task to, you know, really think about this certain idea and then come back to him. And then a couple days later, you know, Mike, I was talking to you about it and I thought it was such a great idea. Well, then I come to Bob and I go, I got this great idea. It's this, this, and this. And he goes, I don't like it. And we both started laughing. You know, Bob and I were laughing. And, you know, I never take it personal because I trust him so much, you know, and I just was like, okay, it's not a good idea. Anyway, then we kept going deeper in it. And he gave me the best lesson that I hope you guys really get this, okay? And I hope I explain it effectively. Is he said, Arash, you're coming from your paradigm. And for you to become more, you can't come from your paradigm. He totally interrupted my thought pattern and we're masterminding back and forth. And from that moment, I just stopped. I just stopped and I was operating internally. I was thinking, okay, I got to come from his paradigm. Okay, so then I started thinking, okay, I was totally on wavelength for the first time in this way. And I started coming from Bob's paradigm and thinking where he was coming from. And now we're implementing that idea. Now, why am I telling you this? First of all, it was one of my biggest lessons that I hope I impress it on you guys. Number two, it's the environment. Like I have created an environment that I can have a mastermind like this. Well, if you would have looked at my environment 10 years ago, there was no way. But what I kept doing is, and I used to ask myself, where do all these people who want to study higher achievement and positive thinking, where do they hang around, you know? And then all of a sudden I attract people, you know, and that's how we met. That's how a lot of my close friends have met now. So you've got to put yourself in the right frame of mind. Constantly invest in yourself. Go to seminars. Go do audio programs. Get the books. That's how you're going to change your environment.
I love that story, Raj. You told it to me a few days ago. And my biggest takeaway was how in non-resistance you were. Like you were not so attached to your idea. You weren't attached to your ego in any way. You were just in complete, like very neutral non-resistance to whatever the feedback may be and open to a greater idea. And I think that that's a great lesson for all of us.
Yeah, you know, one of the big things that I have really started focusing on over the last 6 months is really being neutral. You know, you'll hear Bob, you know, he said it this weekend at the seminar. He says force negates, okay? But I've taken it to, I have to be neutral from situation to situation. And one situation doesn't have to impact the next, you know? And the letting is a thing Bob taught me. He says, let the flow go, control the flow, just let it happen. Well, how many times, if we think about it, all of us, you've started your day and it was a little challenging. Well, you've let that impact the rest of your day. Well, that's because we're allowing that. We weren't neutral. We were emotionally connected to it and we're letting it control the next hour, the next hour, the next hour. Well, I've gotten to a point where I want one moment not to impact the other, and unless it's a good moment, then I use momentum. But if it's not so good, then I want to stay neutral and then completely never think about that again. Like really compartmentalize and just focus in the moment on what I'm doing. And I think that is such an important thing that I've learned.
So good. We have to talk about auto-suggestion because it's something that I know has had such a huge impact on you. And I feel like it's always really valuable when you share about it.
Yeah, auto-suggestion, I look back from when I started, I still do my same practice with auto-suggestion. And if people don't know what auto-suggestion is, it's a suggestion from yourself to yourself. Well, what I do is I have my goal card right here, and I'm always auto-suggesting my goal. So I will read it out loud for 5 minutes a day with emotion. I do it where no one's around, and I just really get emotionally involved in it, for 5 minutes, and I totally let it go. But I told Bob this, I said, when I think about auto-suggestion, I know it's done. The funny thing about auto-suggestion for me is when something happens or signs of my goal being achieved happen, I always relate it to auto-suggestion. The one thing I always go back to, and of course it has to do with other stuff as well, but this to me is such a foundational piece that is, once again, easy to do and easy not to do, but you're conditioning your mind. But, one thing I've learned over the last month or two, probably 2 months, is we can auto-suggest what we don't want just as easily. When we allow thoughts to come in or what somebody says to you, you personalize it and emotionalize it. If you don't negate it and cancel it out of your self-talk, what's going to happen is you're going to unconsciously auto-suggest it in your life. So that's another thing that I've been really using auto-suggestion and really being very careful about what I am allowing in my self-talk.
I love that. I was thinking the other day about how we know that monetary investments compound over time. And I was thinking about the idea that investments in ourselves also compound over time, because when we first start doing something, like whenever I first started doing auto-suggestion, I didn't have a lot of confidence in it. I didn't think that it was going to be as powerful as everyone seemed to say that it was going to be. It just seemed so simple. But as you gain confidence in the exercise or in what you're implementing, it manifest faster with your confidence. And so I'd love to hear you talk about that, about how you can build confidence in what you're applying into your life and how that helps get results faster.
Well, I think you got to accept the idea that it works. I always say people are always, all these master teachers like Bob are giving you, and Sandy, they're giving you their playbook. They're saying, hey, do this, this works. Every client that I coach and everyone that I talk to, I say, if you'll do what I tell you, I promise you'll get to where you want to go if you do it, because everything that I give somebody, it's something that I've done for myself that I know. So one of the things that I look back over is whenever Bob would tell me to do something, okay, I just did it. I didn't ask, well, why are you having me do this? I wonder how it's going to work. I just did it no matter what. And I think that's where you have to have trust in the mentor you're working with. And if you're going to get mentored, which every single person needs a mentor. I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're in 100 million, okay? Whatever you want in your life, if you want to get better health, you need a mentor. And we have to understand the mentor's already been where you want to be and they can show you instead of being frustrated. I've been recently reading a book, an old book. It's The Magic of Thinking Big. And in The Magic of Thinking Big, he says one of the chapters talks about environment and talks about go through your life world class. The challenge that people have is they try to cheap it. They try to cut corners to their success. And I love what Robin Sharma says. He says, and I learned this so much. He says there's two types of people. There's victors and there's victims and leaders. The victim will say, can I afford to do it? The leader will say, can I afford not to do it? And I love that because it's the truth. Like, I wasn't in a position when I first started, like, how was I going to get the money? Like, I figured it out. And I do believe when you make a decision and your want is big enough, you could figure out anything to get you to your final goal.
That's so true. And we've all experienced that at some point in time where we've made a decision that we want something and then we found a way to make it happen. But when we have this big idea or we're talking about our goal And we hear Bob or Sandy say, well, just make a decision and then you'll figure out the rest, and then the opportunity or the circumstances will present themselves. For some reason, people have a really hard time wrapping their mind around why and how the decision comes first. So I'd love to hear you go deeper on decision.
Well, decision, if you like, I mean, I'm around Bob, so everything with him is decision. Like, he's got that ingrained in me. And I make really fast decisions. But if you go back to Napoleon Hill, he said after interviewing 500 of the most successful people in the world, the one common denominator is decision making. You know, like, if we look that we want to win in life, we want to win towards whatever we're going for, we have to make decisions. But the challenge people have is they're too much in their head and not into their heart. And their heart is where everything lies. Your abundance is in your heart, or scarcity is in your heart. If it is scarcity, you've got to replace it. You've got to remove it from your heart, because a year from now, where are you going to be? And all you have to do is look at your past choices. But if you make a decision, your mind focuses on how you can, not why you can't. And that's why Emerson says, when you make a decision, the whole universe conspires on your behalf to make it a reality. You know, decision making is the key. Like right now, like we're on this right now talking. Like, I made a decision before I came off. I wanted to give the greatest value to help people. You know, everything we do has a decision in it.
I love that, Arash. You know, a lot of people, when they're dealing with a really big goal or a really big decision that has to be made, they might tiptoe or, you know, just like try a little bit, dip a toe in, see how it's going to go. But one thing that I really appreciate about you is that when you make a decision, you are all in. It's very black and white. There's no riding the fence. And so I want you to talk about the importance of going all in and why everyone else should make that firm decision too.
Well, I think there's only one way to live, and that's all in. You know, if you go half in, you're only putting 50% of your heart into it. You're only putting 50% of your effort into it. And I love the quote by Dr. Kenneth Blanchard. He says, there's a difference between being interested in creating the life we want and being committed. When we're committed, we do whatever it takes. You know, we don't let excuses control us, okay? So if you look at the time where, Mike, you've been at your best, it hasn't been when you were tiptoeing. It hasn't been when you were doing it. That's why I love giving everyone my goal. I don't care who knows it, okay? Because I want everyone to be my accountability partner. You know, if I tell people my goal, they're my accountability. It puts me more on the line. You know, I'm not worrying, oh, what if I don't? Like, if I don't do it, oh, well, you know, I get to choose why I didn't do it or what happens. But the more I put myself on the line, it makes me even go more all in. And I think that's the only way to go.
That is so good. You know, the last time that we did a panel or one of these discussions was at our Paradigm Shift seminar in January. And something that you said has gotten such a response from people. I've gotten countless emails and social media messages about it. People loved when you talked about letting your dog out. We all have this dog inside of us. And so I just have to ask you to talk about that on this call as well.
Well, you know, I've gotten a lot of messages about it too. It really connected with a lot of people, but I think there is a dog in each of us, okay? And a lot of people are putting that dog away. And I think if you really understand, we have got to unleash the beast in us. You know, we've got to unleash that greatness in us. And when we let it out, amazingness happens, greatness happens. You tap into this potential that God has given you. You know, but when you're shy, being like, oh, I wonder what it is, that dog is just sleeping. You let it out and you will be at your best. It's you putting yourself on the line. And, you know, that's why I think it is so important that we be who we are and let ourselves go. You know, there's people right now watching this going, I wish I could do this. These are the people who've come to me and told me that. I said, you can do it. Stop overthinking it. You know, and Bob talks in our Inner Circle program quite a bit about getting in the spirit of it. When you're in the spirit of anything, you're in the flow of it, you're letting that dog out of you. And when you do that, you're going to get so much countless rewards from doing it.
That's so good. You know, so many people, they are tiptoeing quietly through life and just putting that dog is sleeping because they don't want to offend anyone. They don't want, you know, to inconvenience anyone. And so they're just putting their dreams and what they want and who they really are on the back burner. And so I feel like a lot of people, once you do let that dog out, they're inspired. They're not inconvenienced. They're not offended. And so why don't you talk about that too? Like maybe there's a little bit of fear around it.
Well, they're respected too. They're respected by others. People want people to do well. Like most people want people to do well. And the fear is natural. Fear, I don't think, is the problem. I think doubt is the problem. Okay. I feel like fear gives us feedback of what's going on inside. Okay. But what happens if you doubt yourself and you do it again? Let's say there's a situation, you have an opportunity to go and grow, but your doubt holds you back. Well, guess what? You just chipped away at that self-image that we talked about earlier, and you're empowering that old paradigm, that paradigm you're operating with that does not serve where you want to go. So don't be afraid of the fear. That fear is giving you such good feedback that something amazing is on upwards and coming your way if you will just step into that greatness and really let yourself go.
So good. Arash, I have one more question for you before we wrap up today. And that is just if everyone on the line watching this could implement one thing today that will get them better results tomorrow and in a week from now, what would your suggestion be?
I think it's really making a decision that you're not going to go back from today. You've gotten so much great information this weekend. And a lot of you have maybe done other seminars in the past. Make a decision that now is where you're going to get really committed, like committed more than ever. And let people close to you know, hey, this is where I'm going. Allow them to be accountable to you, okay? That's number one. Number two, invest in yourself. Get the right support system. Get the right mentorship. I mean, mentorship has changed my life. If you study the most successful people, the one common denominator every single successful person has is mentorship. And they never stop. I had a client tell me the other day, well, am I going to will I be done? I said, I'm never done. I constantly am investing in myself. And don't be afraid to, because the more you invest, the more you grow, the more you're going to receive, and the more you're going to have an impact in the world.
I love that. Arash, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for being with us. We will be back first thing tomorrow morning. Have a great night, and we'll see you then.
All right, everyone, that concludes our first day here at the Science of Getting Rich. Thank